Good evening and welcome to Legal Tech Live, episode 87. We are here tonight with the founders of JusticeText, justicetexts.com. And I want you guys to know before we get started that the end of the last episode, when I talked about interviewing JusticeText, and then I had to say Justice Tech, part of the Justice Tech thing, and I was throwing them together, and it was a total disaster at the end. But just so you know that happened. The founders are Devshi Mehrotra and Leslie Jones Dove. They are from Chicago, right? Both in Chicago still?
We're both in California.
You're both in California now, but you met. My understanding is you met at university in Chicago, and that's where you developed this idea. And our co-host tonight is former guest Johan Drolshagen. And how bad did I get it this time?
You're good, man. You're good.
Excellent. All right. So you guys have JusticeText, and this is, tell us just your 30-second elevator pitch. Whomever does that part. Leslie or Devshi, go with the 30-second elevator pitch, and then we'll go ahead and dig in it a little more.
Yeah, I can take a stab at it. So as students at the University of Chicago, we grew to care a lot about the public defender crisis. And so basically what JusticeText was designed to do was try and use technology to, play our part in leveling the playing field when it comes to a lot of the disparities that arise between the resources that public defenders have and then, on the other side of the equation, prosecutors, police officers. And we basically developed a video evidence management tool. Since the very beginning of working on this company, we were working in direct collaboration with the Cook County Public Defense Agency. And, they were extremely incredible, supporters, partners in this entire journey. And so we kind of brought our technical background, our skill sets to the table. And, all of the public defenders that we've directly worked with and gotten feedback from have really helped us build out this tool.
Outstanding. So what does the tool do for public defenders? So from the podcast experience, I'm thinking of it as sort of a rev for video evidence, where it transcribes video evidence. Rev does it for podcasts quite a lot, and it seems similar, but it does a heck of a lot more than that.
Yeah, Leslie, do you want to talk about that?
Sure, yeah. So just as you said, it does that basic thing of transcribing video or audio evidence, but we thought it was prudent of us to try and differentiate it further from other sort of technical solutions that are already out on the market and differentiate them in such a way that they are more useful to the public defense use case and all those different sort of workflows that kind of arise. So one example of that is early on, when we were working with Cook County, one of the defenders we were working with thought it would be useful if they could actually take a little section of the overall transcript and make a clip on that little section, because right before that section, that portion of video, they didn't want to actually show anybody in the jury that portion, but like a 20-second segment afterwards, they wanted to show that. And so instead of them having to sort of download the video and try and sync it up on some other platform to make clips, we just thought we could build that right in and do that sort of in the cloud and make it really fast and easy for them. So, we have different sort of features like that as well in the backlog. And, we're kind of in the stage where we're just looking to differentiate it further by continuously gathering feedback from various defenders that might use this product.
And the video evidence that you're dealing with mostly, is it officer body cams predominantly, or any video evidence of maybe a particular crime?
So we're getting a very big mix of types of video evidence, and it honestly kind of depends on the jurisdiction that we're working with. And so, for, public defense agencies in urban areas, there might be, heavy volumes of body cam footage. But in others, there might be more courtroom proceedings that they have to sift through, or jail calls, or interrogation videos, witness depositions. So yeah, me and Leslie, we've been exposed to like the full gamut of things. And I think body cam is what a lot of people think about when they first think video evidence. But yeah, we've come across quite a wide range.
Okay. That's excellent. Johan, you got a question there? I'm sorry. I don't
Let
mean
me
to
start
run
right off
roughshod.
with how did you come up with this? Like, did Cook County come to you with this? I know this. I've experienced this with judges that like to create their own court rules that no video or audio is allowed in unless there's a transcript, and it catches somebody and they got 24 hours to do it, and it's a nightmare. What was the moment of inception for you?
I think it's really funny because no one would expect to, like computer science students, going day in, day out, like learning about databases to cook this up out of nowhere. And I think I'm just like getting into broader commentary around entrepreneurship. I just think it's kind of a pity that oftentimes entrepreneurship on college campuses kind of takes place in a bubble, because, a lot of times we have so much energy and so much desire to innovate, but the problems that we're exposed to are the problems that, people like us or like our classmates are dealing with, like trying to figure out where like we can get free food on campus, or, like go to baseball shows for, cheaper discounts and things, which is all incredible. And, it adds to our experience. But for me personally, I had just, grown to care very deeply about criminal justice reform. I think being in the city of Chicago contributed to that. And so during our final year, Leslie and we had known each other since like, our freshman year. We decided that, we wanted to use our technical background to help the community in some way, shape, or form. And the public defense system was something that, I had read a few articles about, and we really just like cold called Joel Simberg from the Cook County Public Defender's Office. And Leslie, you can take it from there.
Yeah, I mean, we called him and we kind of had our own idea of what we could possibly do. I think we were playing around with like a sort of a text reminder platform to help decrease failure to appear rates. But Joel kind of told us that already existed, and they were actually, about to roll it out for Cook County. So he was like, we asked him, like, what issues are you sort of dealing with? And that's when he said, they're getting an increasing amount of body camera footage that they're having a hard time processing. Like some of this video might be, 12 hours in length, and maybe there are 2 of them that have to do with a particular trial. And it's hard, A, to store them because they could be pretty large, and B, it's hard to process it in a timely manner so that you can, help out your client as well as maybe dozens of other clients that you kind of have to deal with. So, we thought, just as Devshi said, we would try and bring our own technical experience and expertise to sort of help alleviate that issue.
Now, Leslie, what's your turnaround time on say a single video versus say I upload 25? What's your range?
Yeah, so we are seeing like a 1-to-1 correspondence between the length of a video and the time it takes to transcribe. There's a slight caveat there. Sometimes if there's a lot of actual speech in the video, it might take a bit longer. And we also do some work on our back end to sort of make it better to transcribe on some of our other back end systems. But that sort of highlights maybe a reason why this is kind of very useful for public defenders. They may have very long interview videos, like 12 to 14 hours, but actually there's only maybe 3 hours of actual speech in the text. And so instead of sitting there and having to kind of sift through that entire, dozen or so hours of video, they can kind of at least be hinted by our platform about where speech is happening and focus in on those parts. And we think that some of the value we're providing is that time saved in that particular case.
That's a huge any time save for public defenders who, from most accounts, are overworked significantly and underfunded. Yeah. Any time saved would be fantastic. As far as So you got some great stuff here on the website about speaker recognition, able to automatically identify when different individuals are speaking in the video. Timestamp notes, which I'm guessing is, are they able to annotate as well while once they get a record of the video, they've got certain timestamps. Are they able to, is a public defender able to annotate and say, make sure to come back to this for this reason or that reason?
Yep, exactly. The timestamps, I mean, the notes have a timestamp associated with it.
Okay.
And so, you know, whichever point you were at in the video while you were making the note, you can easily just jump back to that.
Okay, that's what I was wondering, because if you're on a false confession issue or something like that, there's certain phrasing that's probably going to be more important than other phrases throughout the entire, you know, where were you on the night of might be less important than you did this, didn't you, or something like that. Diego's cringing because it's obvious that I haven't been in this situation before as I give this example. But I mean, I know that from forensic standpoint, there are certain aspects and certain speech patterns, not only the patterns, but the things that they are saying at a certain time that have more credence as to whether or not this is a false confession, and not when they're taking down the person's date of birth. So how does it recognize between, say, officer and defendant on the video, and then assign who is speaking? How do you identify those?
So in the back end, we're using, you know, this ASR, automatic speech recognition system, to generate the transcript to start off with. So it's not able to tell you that, you know, this is the officer in this part or this is the defendant in this part. It just notices that, you know, the audio signal is noticeably different enough that it was likely two different people speaking it. Oftentimes, the initial transcription gets it wrong. And so a big thing that we've had to focus on in, you know, designing the product is really trying to make sure that, in spite of the inaccuracies and you know, mistranscriptions that are going to be inevitable, the tool is easy enough to fix and use, and it provides a solid enough baseline for a lot of these public defenders to still, you know, add value to their workflow and things.
That's great. Johan. Oh, and Johan, by the way, Lori Gonzalez is saying, hey, in the in the Facebook group, and Ellen Rodriguez says this is definitely a valuable tool. So, well,
we got the whole gang here. So let me ask you about something that I don't know if you know who those guys are. I won't get into the big explanation. They're phenomenal people. But we actually just had a situation where it's around regulation. So I guess what I want to ask is sort of a two-part question. You've got this with machine learning, great. You're on the cusp of, I'm imagining, things like translation. And now we start getting into a very regulated area. Now, I've actually made the argument just a couple of months ago that language translation with machine learning really doesn't need to be regulated, and it's more based on who the party is that's using it for that purpose. But please tell me you're close to language translation. And then please tell me what sort of regulation hurdles you've been having to jump through, which I also
no, I think the translation point is really important, especially, you know, in certain areas. I think a lot of California offices would appreciate the ability to transcribe Spanish language videos. So far, we have only been dealing with English, and so we haven't personally had to contend with a lot of these issues. I think one thing that we're being really upfront with in all the offices that we're working with is, don't think of this automatically generated transcript as a ground truth. We want it to be a tool that, you know, speeds up the process by which you can review it, make sure that you don't have to look through 10 hours when in fact you might only have to focus on 2. But at the end of the day, these you know, machine learning algorithms are only as good as the data itself. And so if there's inaccuracies that show up, that's going to be reflected in the transcript. And so I think one of the issues that we came up with is, you know, the transcript that's automatically generated, it's not going to substitute, you know, court reporters going in and hand by hand transcribing and, it's not going to be at the level where it can be readily accepted in court. And so we're not even trying really to kind of pitch it as that type of tool, just because we recognize the limitations. So yeah, Leslie, let me know if you have anything else to add, but I think for us, the best thing that we can do is offer as much functionality as we can while, you know, embedding within the tool an understanding and a clear disclaimer about its limitations.
Yeah, and I'll just add that when we onboard new attorneys, we basically just say, you know, if you yourself are going to have trouble kind of distinguishing who is saying what, and in fact, what's being said because of crosstalk or like background noise, so will the algorithm. So, you know, we just try and temper expectations in that way.
So think of it more as this is a productivity tool to help you analyze specific specific discussions, but if the audio is not spectacular or the video is not spectacular, the algorithm's going to have a hard time picking that up too. So you're not doing a forensic trying to clean up the audio or the video here. That's not what you're doing. You're trying to transcribe this for them so that they can look at the most pertinent aspects or pertinent facts that are available in that video.
Exactly.
Okay.
Very cool. Very cool. Congrats, by the way.
Yeah, this is great, and we're getting a lot of. Okay, this is a great question, and Lori Gonzalez asked the question that was brewing for me, but here it is. Are there keyword searches in the tool for transcripts? So now I've got the transcript. Can I now do a keyword search of it?
Yeah, that's funny because that's literally like the last feature that we were working on implementing. It's still in the beginning stages. Basically what we do is, you know, there's a lot of algorithms out there that take a big chunk of text and try to pick out what are the keywords that are, you know, particularly important, informative, you know, summary keywords. And so basically what we do right now is pick out like 10 to 15 of those. And so it might pick up things that say like shooters or murder or, you know, a certain date or a certain individual. And basically if you click on that keyword, it can jump to that part in the transcript. This is still a tool that's very much in the early stages. I'm sure we can incorporate like more sophisticated, just natural language processing methods in trying to do this identification. But that's definitely something on our radar and something that we're looking for feedback on how useful it is.
Do you have a timeline connected in there?
Timeline.
Like, what I guess I'm wondering is, and I'm not going to get political and talk about all the current stuff, but say we've got something that happens at one point, you've got 4 officers standing around watching it happen. Can you actually sync in their testimonies or the transcripts one over the other based on what literal immediate second it happens to be?
So
you're talking about essentially splicing a variety of videos together and getting.
Exactly.
We currently don't have the ability to do that. That actually sounds interesting. And I don't think I fully understand what you were describing. So Johan, can you just explain that one more time, what this timeline feature would look like?
What she's saying is to explain it better, Johan. Could you explain it better than you did the first time?
I will do my best, I promise. You know, say you've got an instance where you've got police officers show up to a domestic violence and they take the 2 parties into 2 separate rooms and conduct the separate communications. And then let's say a 3rd thing happens outside and you're sort of caught on multiple recording devices. But I'm not suggesting triangulation, but I'm suggesting that both of those records being simultaneous would be very compelling all by itself. Not that you have to put them all on one timeline, but you can at least have a timeline for each bit of recording.
Did he explain it better, everybody?
Definitely. I think that makes a lot of sense, especially when you're at the scene of the crime. You know, there's probably many different things that are taking place at the same time. And that's not something that we had actually like heard of before in terms of like being a potential use case, but that sounds like it could be, you know, really, really important. Right now, all we really do is give users the ability to group by case so that, all the relevant videos or audio for certain cases kind of stack together. It's easily accessible. But we haven't taken the extra step to be able to simultaneously, review and process that evidence.
Gotcha.
That's
And
interesting.
yeah, as we worked with our different public defenders agencies sort of around the country, we've kind of been receiving suggestions like that for different features. And I think what makes me excited is that a lot of them are technically feasible. And at this point, it's just about like choosing, prioritizing which ones we want to get down today. And then sort of seeing when is the right time to sort of implement these other ones. But it's certainly possible. And if it's actually useful, yeah, we're definitely eager to build it out.
Yeah, you don't want to have a bunch of features creep on you, and then you're throwing in your primary tool fall apart because you're trying to institute everything else.
Right.
But Alan Rodriguez asks a really great question here in the Facebook group. He says, first of all, he gives you a compliment, really great work here. And he's thinking in terms of the productivity side of it. Are there ways to mark up text, use the markup to search patterns and dialogue? Can two parties collaborate on a working transcript? Are those possibilities? And again, if it's a feature you're not yet working on, we get that as well.
Yeah, so we can currently, for a single user, you can go in and mark up the transcript to add notes and things like that. That's very much something that we've tried to prioritize right now. I think the Google Docs type collaboration, that would be, I think incredibly useful and interesting for us to experiment with, but that's definitely one of the features that's kind of on our list of to-dos. I think right now, a lot of our focus is just make the experience for a single user as, like seamless as possible. We're still kind of in the beta stage. We're piloting this tool. But it's really valuable to know that having that collaborative feature could be, in fact, helpful for attorneys.
Yeah, that is an excellent one. His additional comment is imagine more than one column or row of videos and having transcripts alongside of each other. You can then compare the multiple conversations, kind of as Johan was getting at. So let's take this in a slightly different direction here. You guys are now in California, I'm guessing maybe Bay Area now, and looking to grow this startup. Is that accurate?
Yes, I was actually, pursuing my graduate studies in China, which is probably the worst year I could have chosen, worst year imaginable to study abroad. So those plans are, kind of just like thrown into nothingness. No, but I'm still getting my degree, and so I'll be graduating in June. And, things have started to die down in terms of the everyday assignments and papers that I have. And so this is something that I'm dedicating a lot of time towards. And Leslie's working on this part-time at the moment, and we both really just care about this work. Leslie and I actually haven't met since we graduated a year ago. And yet we're still in like constant collaboration. I've been like all over the place in like a million different time zones, but it's a big priority for us. And so, yeah, we're looking to make it grow. But it is not, are you guys dedicated, this is part-time for both of you at this point, or are you out there actively seeking funding? So honestly, right now is like a big, like pivotal moment in my life. I have to figure out what my next step is.
Okay.
And I think at least for the past like month or so, I've been balancing schoolwork and doing this. So for both of us, it's been part-time. But I think, yeah, I would honestly be comfortable with the idea of making this my #1 priority. If we're able to, have assurance that this can be a financially sustainable option for us. So I think we're kind of figuring that out right now. Our #1 is really just to try and do these pilots with a number of the offices that we're collaborating with and make them successful. And I think that's going to be the determining factor in whether or not I jump into this full-time or if we keep pushing forward part-time.
Excellent. And so you're getting all kinds of love from this group because, first of all, let's hear some ages because you guys are much younger than our
I've got
usual.
kids older than you guys.
So Leslie, what are we working with here? How old are you?
I turned 23 this month, actually, May 7th.
Okay. And Devshi, or you
I'm
got to be 22. So I think youngest guest here doing some really exciting stuff, and everybody is really excited about it. Lori Gonzalez asks, how best can we support you guys as you move forward? So you're getting some love already there. And Diego Alcala, who's a public defender down in Puerto Rico, or a criminal defense attorney down in Puerto Rico, also says he can certainly help. So take people up on this. This is a community, so please take us up on that. Johan,
Yeah.
go for it. You got something else?
I do. I didn't get to experience the interface or anything like that. So what I guess I'm curious is there an interface, or are they emailing it to you, or you mentioned that they get to group them, so I'm assuming there's dashboards. Tell me what you got going on there.
Yeah, so essentially it's a web-based application, and there is an interface. Basically, when we have a new office, we sort of provision different things on the back end, and when we're ready for the attorneys to start using it, we just send them a link. Right now, we're the ones who are sort of saying which emails cannot be used. So basically, we get a list of attorneys that want to hop on, and we give them access, essentially. They log in, they make their own password, and yeah, there is a dashboard. Essentially, you just, from your local machine, you upload whatever file you might have. That's transcribed off in the back end. Like, you can go away, do whatever you want to do with your browser, especially. And then you get an email when the transcript is done. You can then return to your dashboard, open it, and there we have sort of a editor interface that we've worked pretty hard on that just makes it really easy to make corrections to the transcript and watch the video and do some of these other trial preparation features we've built out so far, like making a clip and sort of highlighting those summary keywords and writing notes.
And you said, you mentioned editor, and I think this goes back to something you said earlier. You have an ability for the actual user, the attorney can go and clip a certain amount of video if they want that, and just play that part and just get the audio for that part of video.
Exactly. And perhaps you made clips before videos. You kind of have two sliders that you can move to, specify your start and end time. We also wanted to make it even easier than that. You can actually just highlight the transcript text in the editor, and it will sort of adjust those sliders to contain the video that contain the text that you've highlighted, and then you can just make it quick, just like that.
I like that because I'm thinking, I think of it in a marketing sense, but I would also think about it in an evidentiary sense. Maybe my client did or said some things I don't necessarily want everybody to hear here, but here, this is the important part. So I just want to clip this piece, which is, kind of a little bit of a sizzle reel of, see, this is the good stuff I want everybody to pay attention to. Is that, have they noticed that is, has there been good feedback on the ability to do that?
So yes, there has. Well, but at the same time, we're also sort of dealing with some technical issues that we found. Those long files that I told you about, sometimes, we get very large sort of transcripts as a result. And large as in, the size, the amount of memory it takes to kind of hold these transcripts. And, those have presented different challenges that we're actually extremely focused on fixing right now. So okay. I think that has maybe interrupted some of the other UI or other sort of features that we want people to test. So right now we're sort of focusing on releasing a new version by next week that kind of addresses some of these issues. And that's certainly our number one priority at the moment.
And it's been really interesting because, when you first learn how to code, when you learn these different frameworks or develop in a classroom setting, you can work with like, like a 2-minute video and make everything work really great. And, your product is perfect. But I think since the beginning, we've been working with like real world data that is oftentimes really messy. Leslie did a lot of work in trying to accommodate different file types because, there's, a bunch of different types of formats that this type of evidence is stored in. And so for us, a lot of it has been like, we have this vision of like these features we want to implement and these like workflows that we want to be able to offer. But at the same time, we have to like work within the constraints. And so I think that's another thing that we've been really just focused on. Okay, like first we dealt with those video file formats, and now we're dealing with the fact that there might be like 3-hour, 4-hour, 5-hour long videos that are much harder for us to deal with kind of from a technical perspective. So it's been a really tremendous learning experience for us as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm getting, folks are really enjoying this. Alan Rodriguez asks, and I'm not sure if you're there yet or not, but Alan asks, how much does the tool cost? Have you decided, have you come upon how you're going to do pricing? And it sounds like it's, public defender specific at the moment, but how will you price this?
So we can't say a clear number because we're really just figuring that out through these pilots, figuring out what even makes sense within these public defense budgets. But the model is going to be like a monthly subscription model where you get X number of hours. The more you buy, the cheaper the rate is. And basically you can renew as often as it is useful. And so it's really just tied to the number of hours that you'd like to use the platform for. And when it comes to the pricing model itself, we're honestly just trying to get feedback from public defenders, trying to communicate the value for sure, but also understanding that the problem that we're trying to fix is the fact that they are extremely under-resourced to start off with, and we want to make sure we can continue doing our work, be financially sustainable, while continually, being a product that's accessible to the offices we work with.
Yeah, understandable. Johan.
Man, I don't know. I'm stuck. I love this. I'm thinking of all the LA Sheriff's Department that are having a really bad day right now because they refuse to wear cameras, and we're caught in lawsuits with them to force them to wear cameras. And again, I promised I wasn't going to go political, but with everything that's going on in the world today, we need to be paying attention to what's on those videos, and behavior of these officers needs to be paid attention to, let's say. We're past the day when they get to supervise themselves. And I hope that there's some applications for this. I think I have applications come off the top of my head that, just the disciplinary actions of police officers to get some of these rogue officers under control would be just delightful all by itself. So there's not a question in there. It's just, I really think this is fantastic. It's why I reached out to Nick as soon as I heard the topic. I think it's great.
Yeah, I'm going to add to that a little bit because political or not, this is what's happening right now in video. Is actually making other things happen, actually making pushes for justice when we now see how telling video can be. The other side of that, when we see just how atrocious a behavior by an officer might be in a certain circumstance, that has really pushed things forward. So what you're doing here is excellent. On the other side of that coin is sometimes these videos blow up, just what we see online. Some of these videos blow up, and then the body cam recording comes out and shows an entirely different picture that protects the officer who is actually doing their job correctly. So there is benefits here to having this transcription and for defense, but just in general as a criminal justice reform matter. So I think that's great. Diego asks a great question here. And I'm gonna combine it, and I'll ask it to you on this one, Leslie. We'll start with you. Is the product going at some point for visual recognition tech? Is that it may be too early for that? I don't want to put you on the spot. If it is, you'd tell us you don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think from a few attorneys, we've gotten that as a feature request. It is on our backlog to at least look into it and research it, but I think this also might be just a question of like focus. Like, what do we want to
Right.
focus on? What do we want to be really good at? You know, and that sort of computer vision, it's just a different area essentially. And so, you know, I think as this evolves, we'll sort of consider it more, especially if we get more attorneys requesting that, but at the moment, no, and in the future, perhaps.
And
Sorry.
go ahead, please, Devshi.
We actually, I started digging into this. I know there's a lot of, applications for computer vision and the justice system. I think what we realized, I personally asked a few attorneys, and what they told us was for investigators and for police officers, there is a clear need to be able to do this type of visual analysis, but at least for public defenders, which is the target community that we're working with right now, it's far more the language and finding different. It's because a lot of what they're looking at is like interviews and depositions and such. So I think what Leslie said is exactly correct in the sense that we just want to focus on one thing and try to be good at it.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And you're here with a bunch of lawyers and techies who are trying to push you further along than necessary right now. But another question that came in was, have you thought about offering this tool to outside of public defense to just criminal defense attorneys?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. We started off, in this project as kind of like a side thing that we were doing in school that we really cared about. We've come to realize that, there's a need for this. At its core, it's kind of a neutral tool, a neutral technology. It just supports anyone who needs support with video evidence management. And we also have to, be cognizant of the fact that if we want to do the work that we're trying to do, which is very mission driven, we have to try and be sustainable and provide for ourselves as well. So definitely, we are looking to expand to work with criminal defense agencies, private firms in the future. I think we're starting off with public defense right now, but be really excited to learn what the world beyond public defense looks like.
Well, you're going to get a call from the feds here in about 72 hours.
And Diego says he's did some research on a project like this, and as I mentioned, Diego is the one who told me about you guys and why I reached out. He'd done a research on a project like this out of Boston, I think, and he said he's got a lot of contacts there. So, and he is always willing to help. So, we will put you in touch with Diego as well. What haven't we covered? It's been about 40 minutes here. I don't want to keep you guys all night and get to your studies and your other gigs, but what haven't we covered for everybody, listeners, replay listeners and viewers, that you would like to drive home if there's something we haven't asked?
Yeah, I think for me personally, it's just this idea of what role does technology play in broader conversations around justice, because oftentimes you see these headlines around like racist technology, like sexist technology being used for end goals that are not necessarily aligned with the needs of the community more broadly. And both of us, coming from computer science backgrounds and technical backgrounds, who really care about aligning ourselves with a lot of these progressive and justice-oriented movements, it was important for us to kind of try and bridge this gap and understand what does it mean when technology is in the hands of people who just have a fundamentally different worldview. And I think one of the issues is that the type of funding that's there for, maybe like predictive policing technology or for tools that support efforts to get people in jail more quickly and more efficiently, I think that's ubiquitous, that's out there. And one thing that we've struggled with is just like, if it's not a huge market, how do we go about pitching the value of the work that we're doing? And so a lot of these issues are ones that we've had to navigate with. you know, we're kind of navigating uncharted territory in some ways. And so it's just been an incredible learning experience. We've been surrounded by people, and the fact that the public defenders have been working with us since day one has really just kept us going and affirmed to us that this is, you know, in fact valuable and in fact needed. But in the broader scheme of things, it can easily become discouraging sometimes. So I would just say, like, anyone who is a technical person and is interested in doing this type of work, to just go for it and directly work with the communities that you really want to support.
That's great.
That's fantastic. Johan, it looks like you can sail down to Puerto Rico and hang out now, because they're coming up and taking your spot now. They're coming up to...
You know what? The more the merrier. The more, I love disturbing the system, and we are such a minority of the people that affect criminal justice as opposed to everybody's focused on civil justice. And I promise, and I know Alan and Lori are laughing at me right now, but the walls that people hit when you try and change something in this system are spectacular. So the fact that you've got some traction with the public defenders is fantastic.
It's really great.
Yeah.
Very exciting. Leslie, any last comments that we didn't cover that you'd like to share?
Yeah, just one. Some of the video and audio files that we've encountered contain a lot of African American vernacular English, and what we find is that in some of the other ML models that we've explored and the data sets they use, they often don't include this, and so they struggle with this AAVE. And I think it would be nice if from the very beginning, in training these models, it begins with not only standard American English and, some of the other accented English, but also AAVE, just because it's just as valid. And, it'd just be nice if some of this was more equitable in that way.
That's interesting. And normally when I'm reading about any machine learning or AI based legal technology, there's always an issue on, the main issue that the legal community loves to bring up when it's related to these topics is the confirmation bias, right? That's always the story. But this is the first time I've heard this. How would you train the model to include that, Leslie? I'm not sure I would know. I'm not sure I'm that technical.
I defer that to Devshi, actually. She's definitely more versed in ML than I am.
Okay.
There was a group out of Stanford that actually conducted an audit. And this came out a few months ago on a lot of the major speech-to-text, machine learning engines. And they discovered, basically what Leslie said. We already knew this just from the work that we were doing. And that research was extremely valuable just to back it up. I think one of the issues really is that, within these big companies, they have so many different priorities. They have to get new customers, they want to add cool new features. It's not that they don't want to include different types of dialect. It's just like for us, all the features that we said were on our back burner, it's one of those back burner features for them. And so what I think is important for us to just try and communicate through the work that we're doing is that collecting this data and including voices, I think Black voices in particular, in the United States, including that in your machine learning model shouldn't be one of those back burner features. It should be an up and front priority. It's not hard. It's really just kind of going through the painstaking process of getting all of this data, making sure it's properly formatted and all of that. You can find AAVE on YouTube, on other video hosting sites and such. So yeah, I think it's not it's not one of those insurmountable technical challenges. It's just one of those that I think hasn't gotten enough attention.
So is your work contributing back into those models? Or is it just your model?
No, not currently. Our work isn't contributing back to them. What we're honestly trying to do is, from our side as a customer, trying to advocate and trying to tell them that this is a need, this is actually very important, and this is something that should be prioritized. And the work that academics are doing from their end is also kind of pushing the needle on that front. So yeah, so I wish we could just like one day show up and say, make all of these algorithms more equitable, more just. But we're trying to play our role and excited about the attention that this issue is getting.
Well, this is great, guys. I thank you both, Devshi and Leslie, for being guests here. Tell everyone how they can get in touch with you.
Um,
And you can share whatever social media, your website, your email, however you feel most comfortable.
Yeah, so I think our website, JusticeText.com, you can basically click on a button that takes you to our email. I think that would probably be the best way to get in touch. Or over LinkedIn. I'm on that 24/7, unfortunately. So feel free to reach out over LinkedIn as well. But yeah, either our website, which is JusticeText.com, or LinkedIn for me personally.
And how about you, Leslie? LinkedIn?
Yeah, LinkedIn as well. I'm on that frequently. And JusticeText, just as Devshi said.
Okay, excellent. And JusticeText is justice and then text.com. Johan, how do people get in touch with you?
Oh, let's keep it abbreviated. Right now, we're getting ready to launch judicialassessment.com, which is doing pretrial and bail schedules and that type of thing, trying to keep these same justice industry professionals accountable. So you go to that website, you'll find me all over it.
Excellent, excellent. And that's it for tonight. Come back next week, folks. Devshi and Leslie, don't disappear immediately after, because also there's a family member here who must be very proud of their, I don't know if it's a sibling or a mother or father, but I will have them come on and tell us stories if they're around. Come back next week. We will have Amanda Brown from the Laganape Law Lab, and she'll be talking about all of her uses of technology for access to justice and helping her consumers down in New Orleans. So that'll be episode 88. That's next Thursday night. Join us then if you'd like. And our guests tonight were Devshi, see, I told you it would happen, Mehrotra. Mehrotra and Leslie Jones Dove of JusticeText.com. Thank you both. Thank you, Johan. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Have a good one.